height is correlated with a lot of things. Up to a certain height, taller people make more money than the vertically challenged, and the taller presidential candidate almost always wins. Now a study finds that your height as an adult has a profound effect on your perception of your health. Short people judge their health to be worse than average or tall people judge theirs. The research was published in the journal Clinical Endocrinology. Data for the study came from the 2003 Health Survey for England. More than 14,000 participants filled out questionnaires and had their heights measured. The study only looked at how good the subject thought his or her health was, not their actual health. Questions focused on 5 areas: mobility, self-care, normal activities, pain or discomfort, and anxiety or depression. Men shorter than about 5'4" and women shorter than 5 feet reported the worst impressions, but small increases in height at the low end had much bigger effects on perception than the same increases among taller people. Other studies have shown, ironically, that shorter people on average actually live longer.
They may be our cousins, but orangutans and other primates are nowhere near humans in terms of technological achievement, social organization or culture. As humans, capacity for building off one another, an integral part of our so-called cumulative culture that has allowed us to build up so much in so little time. But how do we develop such advanced methods of learning in the first place? Kevin Leyland of the University of St Andrews spoke with me about his team's quest to pinpoint the social and cognitive process that underlie humans' ability to acquire and transmit knowledge.
We're going to have a short written assessment which will happen every fortnight. You will all be taken up into small groups, so feel free to ask any questions as I go along. And we'll also ask you to participate. So if you'd all like to open your books to page 1.
What we're going to find out today is how it's a bit more complicated than that, which it always is, and I think it's really wonderful. I mean, not being an experimental scientist myself, I have a kind of envy at the way in which science can continue to surprise us by this. People working away in labs, moving our understanding in ways. Hugo is a cognitive scientist at the French National Centre for Scientific Research. Hugo Mercier.
What's an article? I was asking myself this very question in the post office yesterday, standing in line waiting to sign for, as it so happens, an article. A postal article. Not the postal article. Now, before we get ahead of ourselves, an article in English is a word that precedes a noun, and simply indicates specificity. This sounds quite complicated, and to be honest, it's quite complicated to say without spraying everyone within 15 feet, but the concept's quite simple. The definite article in English is the word, the, and indicates a specific thing or type. For example, the train is an hour late. By contrast, the indefinite article in English is any of the words, a, an, or, some, and the indefinite article indicates a non-specific thing. For example, would you please pass me an apple? We always precede a word with, a, if it doesn't start with a vowel sound. For example, take a hike. I'm spending a weekend at Bernie's, or there's a knight in shining armor. Similarly, we precede words with the indefinite article, an, if they do start with a vowel sound, for example, an ostrich, an enormous mess, or an occupational health and safety policy.
If you ever get an infection of the cornea and you wear contact lenses, save the lenses. They could help your doctor figure out what medication would be the best bet to cure what ails you. Wearing contacts is associated with an increased risk of microbial keratitis or corneal eye infection. Such an infection can sometimes lead to complications that might threaten your sight. Doctors will take a scraping from the cornea and then try to identify whatever organisms are present. But in a study reported in the September issue of Archives of Ophthalmology, only 34% of corneal scrapings from contact lens-wearing keratitis patients allowed researchers to identify the microbes involved. But 70% of contact lenses from the affected patients harbored microbes. The study included 49 patients with a total of 50 infected eyes seen at a hospital in Melbourne, Australia. Said one of the study's authors, contact lens culture may give a clue regarding the identity of the causative organism in situations in which the corneal scraping is culture negative and may help in choosing the appropriate antimicrobial agent.
How can you tell the difference between a French baby and a German baby? No, it's not that one is wearing a saucy little beret while the other is tucked into a tiny pair of lederhosen. Well, maybe that's part of it. But a new study in the journal Current Biology shows that the babies actually sound different because the melody of an infant's cry matches its mother tongue. We all know that babies start eavesdropping while they're still in the womb, so when they come out, they know their mother's voice. When they're older, they start to imitate the sounds they hear. Eventually they babble, and then start to speak, and then you never hear the end of it.
Hey, Mom.
But long before that first burble or coo, babies are learning the elements of language. A team of scientists recorded the cries of 60 newborns, 30 born into French-speaking families and 30 that heard German. And they found that French infants wail on a rising note, while the Germans favor a falling melody. Those patterns match the rhythms of their native languages. So next time you hear a baby cry, listen closely. He could be telling you where he's from.